This is Legends of '84, the story of BYU's remarkable national championship football team, told by the men who changed the world of college football and were forever transformed by that unforgettable season.
We knew we were going to be good. How good? Nobody knows.
I just never thought we'd lose. And each game that we won, we got more and more confident.
But once we played next to each other, we protected one another.
If you're not willing to prepare, then you're not going to be ready to win.
We are a peculiar people. We need to embrace that.
Brigham Young University has won the Holiday Bowl 24-17, and the Cougars are the only undefeated team in the nation. And I think they'll be number one.
Their offensive line is so awesome, especially when it comes to giving Robbie Bosco 5, 6, 7 seconds to throw the football. And as you pointed out, that big surge by that good offensive line and
makes the quarterback sneak a pretty easy call.
I grew up in Hawaii. Earliest memory of football was just watching my older brothers play football. And because of that, I remember them running out on the field, the band celebrating, introducing them, and I was like, someday I want to be that guy. This is Louis Wong, offensive tackle at BYU from 81 through 84. Part of it was my older brothers played, and then part of it is I wanted to run in front of the band and be a part of something in high school. So I just followed their lead. My dad passed when I was 12 years old. So as far as influence from my dad, not much, because I really didn't know him. My mom, on the other hand, had to take care of 9 kids. So she spent most of her time working 3 jobs to support us to get through high school. I grew up in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with 11 to maybe sometimes 15 of us, depending who was living with us at the time. When I was in 9th grade, my older brother actually coached me. I wasn't very good, but he just kept me on the team. I had to work my way up through it. I didn't play as a freshman. My sophomore year, I made the team, actually, and then started as a defensive lineman. And then from there, my junior and my senior year, they moved me to offensive lineman. Fortunately, I was big enough to move over to the offensive side of the ball. And then my goal since that point was to get scholarships like the guys that were in front of me.
Look at the time Bosco has to throw here. Unbelievable. Now he moves up a little bit, gets a better view of things.
So growing up, I heard about church, never attended church. And then coming to BYU, it was intervention. Norm Chow actually came to recruit 2 guys on our team that were LDS. Came to our school to recruit them. They had already committed to University of Hawaii. I was walking out of the weight room, and my coach in high school was LDS. And Norm asked, is that one of the 2 guys? And he said, no, you don't want that guy, because that guy's not LDS. And he's kind of a wayward kid, right? And then Norm asked, well, is he getting recruited? And he said, oh yeah, he's getting recruited by other schools, but I'm not sure that's the type of kid that belongs at BYU. And Norm said, well, if he can play, I'll worry about the other half of that. So Norm took a chance on me, which I'm truly grateful for. Because as Kaz said when we talked about winning the national championship, and then the group of us were there, we were there for a reason. And I'm gonna believe that for me, I came to BYU as a reason to improve my life. Having my upbringing, being poor, 9 kids, growing up in Hawaii, I just knew there was something better for me. And when I look at where I was recruited, I thought, BYU's the hardest of all the choices because I would have to change my lifestyle. Even though I didn't know a whole lot about the church, I knew that I couldn't do this, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do this. It was a tougher route, but it was definitely the path that I needed to take. The number one reason I chose BYU, other than I felt like I needed structure, was the fact that Lavelle was flat out honest with me. As a freshman coming in, you want to start right away. And he says, Lou, he says, this is who we have in front of you. We don't project you starting until you're a junior. And as a young man, you're like, what? I'm good. And the fact that he was honest with me right away earned my trust. There was never a question. I'm like, okay, at least he's being upfront with me. Because mostly all the other schools told me you'd play as a freshman or as a sophomore, which I could have been taken back by it, but I just said, okay, there's something about the honesty that I liked about Lavelle. And he was always very honest with me.
look at the offensive line work. I mean, you get, what else can you ask for? Look at him try to block for Robbie as he moves around the pocket.
Robbie didn't have any money, and then he took each of the linemen one by one out and just treated us to lunch. And I thought that was the coolest for someone who didn't have money. And so I've always had a lot of respect for Robbie that way. He just did things that money can't buy. When he was poor, and he just said, hey, I'm taking you lunch. And linemen, we're about free lunches. And we're all good with that.
This is Robbie Bosco, quarterback. I had no money back then, but I would go to the convenience store or whatever and buy these suckers and little penny candies, fill up a little plastic bag, that had to be worth maybe $1, and give them to all the offensive line starters. Those are my guys. Those are the dudes that are going to protect me.
So part of what made us good is the 5 of us were so competitive. Like I said, I felt like I was ripped off because I was the offensive lineman of the week, like 9 out of the 13. But I never got offensive lineman of the year, which bugged me. But we were all so good, and we always wanted to be the best. I don't know if you guys know this. We only gave up 9 sacks that year. 9 sacks. That's how good we were. Where I know some BYU teams that I've watched, they've given up 9 sacks in a game. So we were that competitive. But once we played next to each other, there was never this who's better. It was just we protected one another. We communicated really well. We never went into game thinking we were going to lose. Because on the field, we were great as a team, but as individuals, we all knew that we were pretty dang good. And to beat all 11 of us on the field at the same time, that's going to be tough.
Geez, those linemen are getting outside. They pass block forever. They get outside in the sweeps. I'd sign those guys up right now.
Once I got here, we were all in the dorms together, and you had your football players and then the guys you hang out with in the dorms, right? And my roommate was Dave Wright, who's another offensive lineman. So they put me and him together as non-members. And it was interesting because I went and followed the route of all the guys in my dorm that were LDS. And they would knock on our door on Sundays and, hey, get up, it's time to go to church, right? Dave would chase them, and I would go, okay, and I would just follow them and go to church. And that happened all semester long. And then by the end of the semester, when I started looking and just saying, man, if I want to succeed here, this is like some good people to follow. And then I remember I went home and I had some issues. And then while I was here, I didn't do those type of things, drinking, for example. And then I says, you know what, when I go home for Christmas, I want to see if I can pass the test. And I knew how good I felt. And then when I went home, I failed the test. And when I failed the test and I came back, I didn't feel good about my choices. And then I knew that the only way that I would feel good about myself if I started to be on the right path. So as I started to follow that path, April came around, and that's General Conference. And my resident assistant, the guys who in charge of like your floor, he was the guy that baptized me. And so I shared everything with him. He goes, Lou, this is what you need to do. Get on the path again, and then you'll be happy. And so I jumped on the path, and I'm still jumping on the path, and ups and downs, but I think I was here for a reason. I'm the only member in my family. When I joined the church, my mom was all for it because she just saw the change. And it's only been like, I came here in June, I got baptized in April, but she could already see the change. My mom's been passed away about 8 years. Remember one day she pulled me aside and she says, your kids are different of all her grandkids. And I says, oh, really, Mom? How so? She said, they just are, and I think Glenn used the word peculiar, right? She says, well, of all my grandkids, they're the only one that have their college degrees. And they don't do this and they don't do that, and they've made some good choices. And I said, yeah, Mom. I goes, why is that? And she says, well, I think it's because of your faith and your religion. And I was like, absolutely. The gospel's brought me happiness. He's atoned for us, knowing that we can't do it without him. But he still wants us to achieve that. It's a constant thing for me to try to be perfect. I know someday that that'll occur, but not here on this earth. It's something I think about on a daily basis, and it's allowed me to try to be a leader, like in my profession as a teacher, as a coach. It's brought me joy. The choice I made 40-something years ago wasn't a choice that I made by myself. I think even though I wasn't a member, there was some intervention there, divine intervention, because he cared about me enough to put maybe that spark, that maybe unknown wisdom at the time, that this was something that I needed to do if I wanted to have joy in my life. And the Gospels definitely brought that, for sure, and I just wish I can share more of that with people. So I live my life. I'm not a preacher. I don't preach it. I just lead by example. Like, I think most people see me like, that's a good guy. That's a happy person. He's had a good life. Why? And the Gospel's the number one reason why is because of a decision, of a choice that I made when I was 18 years old. So I know there's a lot of 18 years old, 16-year-olds that are out there, that are going to make choices. Two things. The choices you make control, like who you will be down the road, and then whoever your friends. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And that's a true statement. As I reflect back, is I didn't have a dad. And playing sports in high school, and after I got done with games, all my friends were like, meet my dad. There's my dad. I never had that. It'll be interesting when I move from this earth to my next life, when I meet him, what he'll think about the choices that I made in my life. And so hopefully, Dad, he's proud of the choices I made. I've really never taken the easy route.
Kimball rolling to the right this time, but looking to throw. Lots of pressure, and they sack him. Leon White simply went through a block and brought him down back on the 25-yard line.
I was a baseball player growing up. This is Leon White, linebacker. I started playing baseball at 8 years old, and that was the love of my life. I played all the way through college. Didn't really start playing organized football until high school, but I loved playing football. It was fun. Played with my friends in the park and all that stuff, but didn't play organized until my first year of high school. Ninth grade year, a bunch of my friends said, hey, let's try playing football. Looks like fun. We went out and tried out for the team, and the rest is history.
Kimball back to pass on first down with BYU ahead 10-0. Right over the middle, and wow, what a hit at the 23. That's Leon White, who put a shoulder into Mickey Bell and brought him down in a hurry.
I was a highly recruited player coming out of San Diego. Was getting a few offers from some of the local teams, West Coast teams, USC, Arizona State, San Diego State, of course. And before the season started, I hurt my knee, and I had to have knee surgery. So I missed the first 6 games of our season. So after that happened, those teams started to drop off. One by one, no more offers. Arizona State gone. San Diego State, they held on to their offer. And I came back the last 6 games of the season, and I was healthy. I played well. Our team went to the San Diego City Championship and won that. We were undefeated that year. So San Diego State knew that I was able to come back and play healthy. So they kept their offer on the table, but there was no one else. So I was basically planning on going to San Diego State. And then one of my coach's friends, his name is Ted Tollner. He was an offensive coordinator at San Diego State. And he had just gotten the offensive coordinator job for BYU. So he was on his way to BYU. And he was talking to my coach, and he said, yeah, Leon, he's looking like he can play. The injury didn't bother him any, and I'd like to ask him if he wants to come to BYU for a visit. So I was like, yeah, why not? Wouldn't hurt. So I went and just fell in love with it. Had a chance to meet all the coaches there and really felt comfortable there. He talked to Lavelle, and they decided they wanted to give me an offer. So they offered me a scholarship, and I turned down San Diego State scholarship and went to BYU.
Here's Ward running right into Leon White and making nothing.
It was in the wintertime when I went for that trip, and being from San Diego, you're not going to see much snow. So that was one thing that I really loved. It was exciting to be there. The cold weather, the weather change was a lot different. I wanted something different too. Growing up in San Diego, I wanted to get out and see the world a little bit. And the people were so kind. The facilities were great. Lavelle said that there's a possibility we could play in the Holiday Bowl 2 or 3 times during your 4 years here. So that was a big draw. That was something that I wanted to do, is come back and play in front of my home crowd. So
dropping back is Stevens, looking, throwing over the middle, almost picked off. Ooh, that was close. Almost picked off by Leon White, 6'2", 222 pounds, a junior. It was intended for Cherry.
McMahon actually recruited me. Yeah, I didn't actually play with him, but he was part of the recruiting process. I knew the history of BYU. Being from San Diego, I had seen him play a couple of times, not even imagining that I was going to be going there. But I went to the first Holiday Bowl in '78, and I went to the Miracle Bowl. Went to them both, so I got a close look at how BYU plays football. I was a defensive player, and one of my influences was Fred Whittingham. He was the linebacker coach then, and just an amazing person. He's someone I looked up to and saw myself as one of his players and someone that could possibly help me get to the pros, because he played in the pros and his coaching style was something I was comfortable with. Me being non-Mormon, African-American, it was definitely a change, and that's something that Lavelle talked about. Those were 2 things that I had to adjust to. As far as the atmosphere, I was around football, it seemed like 24/7. You can make things work when you're around friends that you love and respect. And that's what we did. We were brothers, and I think that's the reason why we won. That's the reason why we did so well. We were so close to each other. Those connections just really helped us during that whole season.
There's Ward being chased, runs it up the middle. Oh, is he hit at the 21-yard line? Leon White really put a shoulder in him.
Lavelle, he always preached faith first, but family and friends were very important in his life, and he exemplified it every day with his family and his wife, Patty. They're such a close couple that you couldn't help but rub off on you. And the way he treated players, the way he treated coaches, the respect that he gave them, it just rubs off on you. It's something that you want to emulate, and he was one of the greatest people that I ever knew.
Ward at quarterback, gives it a handoff, breaks into the secondary this time. Nice run to the 23-yard line, but boy, was he hit when he got that far.
The masher, Leon White, came from the backside, and as he turned.
I remember this was my first Holiday Bowl in 1982. We played Ohio State, and I think that's when I started to realize how much work I have to put into being a good player and to being able to compete as one of the top teams in the nation. Ohio State was just an amazing power, and they beat the heck out of us if you ever go back and watch that game. So after that game, that's when myself and other teammates decided we need to put more work into preparing for the next seasons to come. Because if this is what we have to go against, if we want to be considered the top teams in the nation, we're going to have to compete with teams like Ohio State. After that, we put more time in the weight room, studied more, and we did the things that we needed to get better. That was the beginning, I think, of how well our defense played during that 1984 season.
There it is, sprinting out away from the pressure again, and Leon White just does a great job of keeping containment, shedding off the blocker and getting into Jim Kimball's face, taking him.
Preparation. Lavelle always preached this: preparation is the key to success. Whatever you're doing, and regardless of what it is, if you prepare, you're going to be ready and you'll be successful. You're going to do the job that's expected. And he prepared us for everything that could happen on a football field, whether it was special teams, offense, or defense. He made sure we were prepared for that moment, and that's a big part of 84's success that we had. Before the season, just preparing for the next season, my mom gave me a call and said, "Your dad's been diagnosed with cancer." And that just flipped my whole world around right there. I was in shock, but I really didn't know what to do. Most people think you're just going to go home and be with your dad and try to comfort him as much as possible. And that's what I wanted to do. But my mom said, "No, he doesn't want you to come home. He wants you to stay there, finish school, and get ready for the season." So that's what I did. She said, "There's nothing you can do for him. Just pray for him and be there for him when he needs you." So that's what I did. And then the first game came along and we started doing really well. This was a couple of weeks, I think it was 4 weeks into the season. We're talking on the phone this time, and he said, "You guys are doing really well. I'm proud of you guys. If you can win the WAC championship and make it to the Holiday Bowl, I'm going to be there." And I'm like, wow, how are you going to be there? Because my mom was saying he probably won't be able to make it that far. He's not going to live that long. And I said, okay, Dad, hey, we're going to make it there. Don't you worry. If you're going to be there, we're going to make it there. That was the turning point for me. I thought, there's really nothing else I'm playing for but to help my team get back to the championship and play in the Holiday Bowl. So we kept grinding, and every week was a better week, clinching the WAC championship probably the 8th week of the season. So I knew then we were going to the Holiday Bowl. I called my dad and said, hey, we did it. We're in. We're going to be there. And he said, okay, I'm going to be there. That was that part of it. But the second part of it was, how are we going to get him there? Because he was very weak, bedridden. And we had this very good friend. She was a nurse in San Diego. She was a nurse for the Naval Hospital, and she's been helping us out and keeping an eye on my dad. And she was a go-getter. She didn't take no for an answer. And so she knew she was in touch with my dad's doctors, and she went to them and said, this is what we want to do. We want to get James White, my dad, to be able to go to the game. And they looked at her like, wow, that's going to be tough because he's bedridden and there's no way he can sit in any of those seats. It's just not going to work. And she said, no, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. She kept pushing, and she thought, why not get him on the field? There's a way he can do it. Just bring him down and we can put him on the field somehow. She didn't know really how to do it, but she was just throwing that idea out there. They got in touch with the Holiday Bowl committee. Somebody said, yeah, we could bring him down to the field in an ambulance. He's still in his bed, and we can get him a crane and pick the bed up on the crane and prop him up right behind the sideline, the best seat in the house. So after she heard that, she just went to work and she started calling everybody and got the doctor's permission. And we had to okay it through Michigan and, of course, the BYU coaching staff and all of their administration were all for it. So we made it happen. Had the best seat in the house to watch his son and BYU win the national championship. That was one thing that I appreciate. Coach Ken Schmidt said, Leon, you can go over to your dad. You don't have to meet with us. You go over and talk to your dad. Don't worry about coming over to the sidelines. After we came out the field, every time I'd go over to my dad and talk to him, and he would encourage me and tell me what I needed to do to get better and make a play, and just inspire me. It was all for my dad. It was all for my dad.
Coming up next episode.
So here we are in the fourth quarter of the game. We're down by 7 points. The season's on the line. If we don't win this game, we're a one-loss team, like multiple BYU teams are. We want to be set apart from all the other great teams, and the only way we can do it is win this game.
Thank you for listening to Legends of 84. This podcast series was produced by Eric Michael Robertson and Scott Christofferson, with Bree Ray Alpew as associate producer. Music by Stuart Maxfield and Eric Michael Robertson. Legends of 84 is a production of BYU Radio.